Welcome to Share Talk podcast. Today we have Andrew Bell, Chairman of Red Rock Resources, ticker RRR on LSE AIM. Hi Andrew, how are you doing this morning?
Hi, John. Very well, thank you.
Very good. We just noted your RNS this morning about the Jupiter mines, but before we get into that, I just wanted to ask if you could maybe do a short introduction about Red Rock Resources and the current projects that you're working on.
I think Red Rock's focused at the moment on gold and to some extent oil. These are our favorite commodities. We have some legacy interests which were in iron ore and manganese. And one of these, of course, is our residual stake in Jupiter Mines. We still have 30% of our original holding of shares there, and there's been a lot of dilution. But in the course of all of that, this mine has come into production. So that is a very significant part of our portfolio. You might call it our anchor asset. We also have some oil production in Louisiana now that we got into at the bottom of the market earlier this year. And we have gold assets with 1.2 million ounces in Kenya that are at the moment subject to, we're litigating with the Kenyan government because our local partner, they tried to take the thing away. I think that is going reasonably well. And we have some other interests.
Okay, so getting on to Jupiter Mines, it's obviously unlisted company in Australia. You've got 27 million shares.
Yep.
There's been an announcement this morning about that. Do you want to give us a bit more detail about that?
Yes, Jupiter Mines is one of the three top manganese producers in South Africa. The Kalahari Manganese Basin contains 80% of the world's metallurgical grade manganese. That's to say what goes into steel making. 95% of it goes into steel because you can't make steel without manganese. Otherwise, it cracks when it, for example, it cracks when it heats and cools. And the proportion varies from less than 1% in standard steels to maybe 13-15% in steels for some uses, for example, like railway lines. But the number of countries producing manganese of this grade is small, and we're one of the top 4 or 5 companies worldwide.
And you've obviously been given, there's a distribution from the 55 million that's going to Jupiter today of sort of circa 530,000 to Red Rock. How are you going to put that cash to use within Red Rock?
Well, I think the question people were asking before is, will you need to go back to the market to raise money?
Sure, yeah.
Again and again, like a lot of these small companies. And what we've developed is 3 income streams, and one of them is this, dividends. 2 have already come into play this year, which were the gold royalties from Colombia, from the asset we sold there, and the revenue from the oil and gas in Louisiana. We've always said the third one, Jupiter dividends, was going to be just as important, if not more so. And I think nobody believed it. Now it's happening.
Yeah, so that's due in March next year, in 2017. Yeah. And we're obviously, it's got a 60-year mine life from the Shippy, mining. So what are you expecting in the future from that in terms of further distributions?
Well, I think what's been indicated is there could be another distribution next year, because we know 2 or 3 months in advance how much money we're getting in, because that's how long the pipeline is. So by December, we will know what's happening up to Cheapy's year end in February. By February, March, when we're making that payment, we should know pretty much what the first quarter is going to be. If prices stay up around here, then Cheapy will be accumulating cash at a very great rate. And I could see the prospect fairly soon of a similar kind of payout, which would mean that we'd repaid 100% of the cost of the mine construction in a few months, and we got distributions of almost all the book cost of the assets on our books as dividends in sort of less than a year. That's perfectly feasible. If the price goes down to the level that most people think is the likely long-term price for manganese, then I think we'd still get a very substantial dividend quite soon. So people can, I mean, it may be difficult on the basis of just one payout to try and put this investment on a yield basis.
Yeah.
But people should start to get the picture by sort of next year, and they should start to realize what this asset is, because we've always been saying what it's worth, but we didn't have the evidence to convince people before.
Yeah, and there's a mention in the RNS about Jupiter pursuing strategic options for its investment. I mean, can you expand any further on that?
Well, I think that's kind of investor speak code for we're going to consider whether we list it or whether we sell it,
Yeah, sure.
depending on whether someone gives us a really, really good price or whether we think the market conditions are going to be good for this.
Okay.
But bringing it back on the market as a proven producer with the capacity to increase production still 100% from sort of recent levels, and with a good dividend record and good profit record, that's going to have a very different valuation from when we had it listed in Australia before, when there was only a tiny amount of the stock trading and it wasn't in production yet, and Australians didn't really get what it was about.
Okay. Thanks for that information. And you're obviously CEO and exec chairman of Regency Mines. So whilst we've got you here, we know you're going to be appearing at a little event coming up on Saturday, the 26th of November, with Share Talk. So I was wondering whether you could maybe give us an insight as to maybe what you're going to be talking about on Saturday.
Yeah, it's actually not just going to be me, it's going to be my colleague Scott and myself presenting Regency, but I don't want to spoil the fun for people by telling them what we're going to be talking about.
Okay.
If there's anything market sensitive we're going to say, we'll of course put out some public release. But if we're just giving general background, well, people will, I guess you'll be recording it or something, so it'll be up on the website afterwards.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that, Andrew, and we look forward to meeting you and Scott on Saturday.
And looking forward to it very much.
Thanks, Andrew. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.